To help you see the big picture of activity-based costing, let's look at a real-life problem with cost allocation. This is based on a true scenario some years ago when I had daughters who were freshmen in high school, and the problem with being a freshman in high school and going to the homecoming dance is nobody drives unless you go with older students. Well, this was a group of freshmen, high school students, that went to an Italian restaurant before the homecoming dance. Taylor and Kim ordered a pasta plate costing $15 to share. The group also ordered some appetizers to share. When the bill arrives, it's $300. A bit surprised at the bill, the students quickly begin to determine how much each person owes. Bob, who ordered the $25 Italian steak dinner, suggested that each person pay $30. That is $300 divided by 10 people, to keep it simple. Do you see a better way? Now, I was the mom that got to drive from the restaurant to the dance, and I was in the car with Taylor and Kim. The names have been disguised to protect the innocent. Bob was not there to protect himself or defend himself. And I did hear about how unfair they thought that cost allocation method would be because of the entree that they had ordered cost $15 and Bob had ordered a $30 entree. So of course you probably said, well, they should probably trace direct costs to each person and then allocate the common costs on a rational basis. Well, the direct cost would be the cost of the entree plus tax and tip. That could be traced directly to each person, so Bob would pay for his own $30 steak dinner. The indirect cost, of course, that would be the cost of the appetizers and the related tax and tip. So you do need to allocate this among the 10 students. Well, you could do what's easy and base it on the number of people. You could say, well, we spent $50 on appetizers, so each of us owes $5. Or you could base it on consumption. So you could be the person at the table that went around and asked, how many cheese sticks did you eat, how many nachos, and then decide how much each person owes. Now, obviously, you may not want to be that person, but the first way is the easy way. But of course, for those of us who don't really like to eat a lot of appetizers so that we actually eat our meal, the second way is more accurate. Now, this is a big picture look at the difference between traditional costing that does what's easy and activity-based costing, which goes to a little more effort and record keeping to be more accurate. Here are the 4 steps. You'll identify and classify your major activities that are required to manufacture a product, and you'll allocate overhead cost to cost pools. These cost pools will need to have a strong correlation to a specific activity base. So you might decide that we have purchasing costs, and you could allocate that based on number of purchase orders or pounds purchased. Machine setup could be number of setups required if you want to keep track of how many setups you have performed, or number of batches. That would be an easy way if you have to set up your machines between each batch. Processing could be based on machine hours, or labor dollars. You're seeing multiple activity cost drivers for each of these pools because I want you to see that it's going to vary from situation to situation. Each company is going to determine the best way to allocate costs. Assembly might be number of parts assembled, number of units, direct labor hours or direct labor dollars. Inspection, number of units, number of inspections, or perhaps number of batches if you inspect 1 per batch. Shipping might be number of items, pounds shipped, or number of shipments. Now, steps 1 and 2 are typically done for you. you'll see a list of activities that have to occur, and you'll be able to identify the activity base that drives it. So the focus in our problems are going to be on steps 3 and 4. In step 3, you'll calculate activity rates. So in the previous step 2, we would have a purchasing activity rate, a setup activity rate, a processing activity rate, an inspection activity rate, etc. And we would calculate this by taking the estimated overhead cost for the activity. So you might add up all setup costs, and you might divide by number of batches. Note that this is really nothing new. This is very much like the predetermined overhead rate calculation, except now it will focus on a specific activity and the related cost. In step 4, you'll assign overhead cost to cost objects. And you'll do this based on the occurrence of activity. The formula will be the activity rate that you computed in step 3 times the cost driver related to that product line. In other words, this is like the overhead applied calculation. Overhead rate times activity. So you will need to know the expected use of the cost drivers for each of your product lines if you're going to allocate costs in this method. So overall, ABC is very similar to traditional costing. The biggest difference is that you will use multiple activity rates to assign indirect cost to inventory. Now let's work some examples.